Want to go to the other sessions? So thank you for choosing mine. I really look forward to us not just hearing from me, but to collaboratively discuss this balancing act. And as we get started, and those that are joining me on Zoom, thank you so much for joining. I am just going to minimize your faces as I have the screen up. But, one of the things that I've been working on, to give you a little context, so Noel Criscione-Naylor, School of Business, Hospitality and Tourism, and I recently just gave up the chair role for the Sports Management Program. That as of right now, we have 34 students and going into our start of our second year. And one of the things that I have really struggled with is how to balance all of the service expectations and the voluntold opportunities, as well as how to continue from a career perspective with publication requirements for things like, at first it was tenure, now it's for promotion. So just so I get a gauge, how many of you are not tenured and you are looking at this from that perspective? Okay. Those of you that are tenured, how many of you are working towards a promotion? Okay. And then how many of you in here can successfully balance those three obligations of being teaching, service, and research? Fabulous. That's why we're all here. So I hope to share with you some of the strategies and to really highlight some of the things that have been highly effective for me in the last 2 years in employing this. And if I can give a plug, because I have Alexandra joining me, it really even started with me joining a phone workshop. So make sure that you do take advantage of some of those services, because I have to say I attended, I think it was 2. She personally looked over my paper, and since then, I really enjoyed publishing because I'm not getting as many nasty, denials, right? Or major revisions.
Peter B. We're all about just trying to be.
Absolutely. So to get started, some of the things I want to share with you is that just to acknowledge this, and I do also acknowledge that based on our disciplines that our requirements might be different, particularly when it comes to service and those research components. So much of what I'm going to share with you is generalized. I'll give you some ideas, but we all have to see, or at least have potentially experienced, that the students that we have coming in post-COVID, and I keep hearing about COVID, our students are different. And some of that is that they went from, different environments. Some had their last years in high school before they came to us during COVID. Some of us, from a university perspective, believe in providing a lot of supportive services. Sometimes that translated into lowering our volume, right? So we have all of these different challenges that have manifested. So not only do we have to do our service and our research obligations, we still have to figure out how to engage the classroom, right? Because that's why we are primarily here. And that's become an increasing challenge. At least for me, we're in the hospitality program. I have to tell you this, we're the funniest. That's our reputation. We couldn't get students to come to our events. We can't get students to engage in projects the way that they used to, right? So that was always in the back of my mind. Then we have all these research demands. So in our school, we have a specific accreditation that holds up our standards for publication. Anybody have specific standards that are maybe outside of the university standards, like you have to publish a book? I know we have programs that have to publish books. Nobody in here? So we have where we have to make 2 publications every 5 years. Those publications drop off. We have to continue at that pace. We also have an entire list of things that count or don't count. So our journals in the School of Business, they have to be ranked, they have to be listed in Cabell's, or they have to go through an internal committee that approves your journal for rigor. So there's a lot in there. Although no one talks about it directly, we have some competitors in Glassboro who have a pretty lofty agenda, and we feel that because there is an emphasis in, and this started, we've gone through a couple of deans in our school, where if you publish an A or B journal, you get a really nice congratulations. Those are not valued any part based on anything that we have, but again, we're seeing this change that there is the demand for higher publication journals and status and impact. So again, how do we now balance this? That it's no longer potentially good enough to publish where we were in prior outlets. Now there's this escalation in the type of journal, which your top ranked journals, the turnaround time is very, very different. And then, of course, the service responsibilities. How many of you volunteer? Nope, so I don't even believe that. Not one of you raise your hands. That means you all over volunteer. right? We all have these committee jobs. So we have all of these things that we have to try to balance. So how can we do it? So what I'm going to share with you is, I hate when people tell me this, you just need to effectively manage your time. So that is the summary of my presentation today, is please just effectively manage your time. Well, how in the heck do you do that? Because for me, there's not enough time in a day to do it. And depending upon our discipline, right, I'm a qualitative researcher. Those projects can take a different amount of time, right? There is also a different perception whether you're first author, second author. In our school, once you're past the third author, it really doesn't count. Whatever those nuances that you might have within your school. So if any of you that do know me in here, I'm like rapid energy pace. So I need to figure out a way how I can crank out the publications that I want and the timeline that I want, but still highly engage my students. Because how many of you actually do love research? Just a little bit, right? I love research, just a little bit. Like, I'll never admit that outside of the church. So how can we all effectively do that? So the only way I found is when I purposely bring them all together. That is the only way I've been successful. And again, I'm not here to offer you something you didn't know already, but I've tried to do it in a seamless way now where I won't engage in something unless I know I can get research out of it. And at first it was a little clunky, and now I have it streamlined that it's just like a running machine. That's all it is. I even have a timeline, and I have some resources. If you're interested, I'd be more than happy to share with you after this. So here is the 3 strategies I would like to give you today, and then open up to discussion and what you do in your classrooms. The first one that has been the most successful that I've found is integrating a research service in the course design, right? Because I already have teaching in that component. Followed by looking at it through community engagement. How many of you do service learning right now? Or maybe are highly engaged in the community, right? So look at how do we do that to be more effective and get research out of it. And then the last one is more from a strategic planning process and collaboration. Because how many of you love to do a literature review? None of you. Can I just tell you, that is my favorite thing. Love it. Absolutely love it. Some of my collaborative partners, I hear them complain, I'm like, oh, you don't want to do that? You don't want to do a discussion? I was like, how would I do that? So I'm going to just share again some of these strategies where you can leverage the things that you're really good at or like to do, and then same thing with some of your colleagues. So I want to start out with this integrated course design. This is where I've had some of the neatest things come out of it. And it's really about designing research-based assignments. So does anybody do research-based assignments in their classes right now? Would you mind maybe sharing 1 or 2 examples of what you do? Tina, do you want to share what you do?
It's been a couple of years, but I've used ongoing survey data for students to analyze, like live surveys.
Great.
As data come in.
And have you had the opportunity to take some of their analysis of preliminary and put it into your own work stream to go to publication?
Yeah, I definitely shifted the final outcome of the survey too. Yeah.
Great. Anybody else? Please.
I teach an independent study that is editing the 16 83 to 87 book. So I choose students and they write footnotes, they write preliminary headnotes, introduction, and then we go to rare book libraries where they can see the basic stuff and I can do a little extra.
Great. And how about one more? Anybody else on this side of the room? Anybody have anything they want to share? Please.
I sort of kind of have something going on, but my executive functioning is so bad that I have an extremely hard time with sort of stuff. So the Grandmaster Plan uses my backlog of sediment samples to teach my customer processing students how to do grain size analysis. Which benefits them, and it can be, it's actually part of research that needs to give them anyway. And there's samples that I've intended to do something with, but I have never actually done something with it. So I can teach the students how to do. I think we also have something going on with the hydrographic survey, where me and the field station manager, we're planning to do hydrographic surveying over the same section of the Mullica River multiple times over like 10 years. Now, that was just an idea that we had, but if we can keep doing that, then maybe 10 years from now, we would have ammunition for a paper on change.
That's a great longitudinal study.
But like I said, these are ideas that kind of have to implement, and then maybe they pay off later.
Maybe. Okay. But you know what? That's how I initially started. So I want to share with you a couple of things that I've done that's really, really successful. And if you want, I can really teacher it out and put it on the board. But again, I have all samples of everything I'm willing to share for anybody in the sessions. So the first thing that I do is I teach a capstone course. It's a policy and strategy course. So my discipline expertise is strategy. And I give my students, I have a capstone project, I give my students an opportunity to do the capstone group project, which thank you, Heather, you often join my classes for me. Or I say that they can do an independent research project. Here is the extremely aggressive timeline in 15 weeks to do research. And how I got to that point is, before I ever decided to do it, is I did a search on the special journal issues that are student issues that still will count as a double-blind peer review for me. I looked at all of the upcoming undergraduate and graduate conferences because I'm thinking about publications, proceedings, and presentations. And I aligned those different calls to my class. So as much as that sounds simple, one of the things I have to share with you is what does a 15-week potential, when you look at it, I'm not talking full-blown research articles, I'm talking, and this isn't all of our most of our disciplines, but many journals have sections like editor comments. Now, all of them are double-blind review. You have to find the journals that have them. There are some that are double-blind review. There are also some that have the student special issues. There's what we call commentary articles on the business side, but they have all different journals, including teaching journals, where you can have student submissions. So I aligned it to that. When I say that I've done this 15 weeks over the semester and have all of these milestones since that, in the last year I've published 9 student research articles as industry commentary articles in an international journal. And we've had 4 students from our school that we were able to send to a research symposium and conference. It's top in the US. So again, it proved to be really a big benefit. The second strategy that I have used is that I've partnered with another center that we have here at Stockton. So who knows some of the centers that we have at Stockton here? What are some of them, please?
Center.
Okay, what else is there? Because I'm going to miss some of them. That's why I'm asking for your help on this.
SCOSA?
Yeah. CTLD, the Light Institute. So I have recently partnered with Light. We did an Atlantic City visitor perception study next year. It has just been proposed to do it for the next 4 years. Students engaged in research. This time around that we did it, we had 1,700 responses. Now, interesting enough, Light didn't want to publish that to share the results of Atlantic City, but we did a conference presentation of that, and we designed the survey in a way that the first part of the survey collected general data that we are then able to turn around and publish on. And not only are we able to do that, now we have a longitudinal study that we will be able to do. So it's built up pipeline. In that initial report. The second piece, the third strategy that works really well is that from a teaching and learning perspective is that in some of my classes, particularly online classes, I have added pre and post surveys that have tried to target the learning objectives and the transformations in students. So when I say that, I'm going to give you an example. I teach a class that is called event design. No, it is not throwing parties. There's actually a lot to it. If there is an event and it's a good event, you're supposed to walk in the door one way and you are supposed to walk out the door completely different. There's an entire model on what that looks like in theoretical basis. So this model that is very prevalent in the international market isn't as much here in the United States. So I said, does it really produce a transformation from a student's perspective? So my students came into the class, they did pre-surveys, did post-surveys, started to collect that over the semester, and then my students started to work and analyze the data from the classes. We've got 3 publications now. So again, it's all about the strategies and understanding your outlet. So how many of you know how to search for a journal? Are you successful with searching for a journal? If not, I'm actually
Go
not.
to a fawn. There's a fawn workshop that's actually run by Heather. That is all about finding successful journals. Look on this.
And the other one I would say is go to your discipline's librarian. That is where I always start. In fact, poor Heather here, she happened to take this room. How many times have we had meetings? I'm like, oh, I want to do this research. What do we have? We have this. So again, don't be afraid to use the resources. And then kind of get to use class data for research. You know, how many of you, do you know, even with our event team, our event services team and all the student clubs, they have data that they are willing to give you. I've been working with Jeff Wakeman. I just got my second data set. Last year, we published on diversity, actually about organic diversity in student clubs from Stockton, from getting that research data. We just asked for another list. This time, we're now going to potentially align it to disciplines, to majors, to GPAs. So again, it's about the resources that you have. How many of you like AI? Do you know that AI is being used as a data source where you put prompts in it, you have students all put prompts in it, and you can do a comparative analysis on what you're getting out of AI? So again, it's about leveraging what you have.
Data's real.
What's that?
If the data's real.
If the data's real. And again, even AI in journals, there are some journals you can't have AI reference. There are other journals that you can. So again, it all starts with knowing what the resources are in a particular area. What I have found is that even tying that in and tying my students that have done their research with me, and then having students in my subsequent classes either participate, come to my student presentations, it has naturally just come into my lectures in the classroom where I invite my students. And since then, I have a line of students that want to do research. So it's really created a pipeline that I didn't necessarily think was possible at a higher level of engagement. I recently, back in May, took 2 students and a grad student to the Eastern Academy Management Conference, which is a top management conference. And the students said it was the best experience that they've ever had in their lives, that they couldn't believe it was free. They only had to present. It's almost like a vacation. They stayed in every single session the entire time they were there because they were so jazzed about it. And they've asked, can I do more? So again, until we really start, and a lot of it is trial and error, I've had students, when I've gone over my 15-week timeline, and I've said, you might not get to the publication point. It has a lot to do about the quality of writing at some point. And I've had some students that, guess what, they weren't good enough to submit for publication. But I found other outlets to recognize the student's work, right? We all have a lot of different publications. There's a student newspaper. We can use those outlets to at least get something out of it to drive the student engagement. And what I have found is that in my particular classes, is that some students take it just to do the research now in the classes that would be electives for them. So what do you think? I mean, it's not rocket science. Do you think just some of these general ideas that you could make happen? I mean, you have to get through the IRB process. I have to tell you, last semester when I did my Atlantic City process, I worked with the Office for IRB, and within 3 weeks, we had our approvals. Right? They really streamlined those processes. There's a whole slew of resources, that you can do to submit. So although at first I was really afraid to start a semester with not having IRB approval, it happened really quick. Because I've had cases where I still have one, I've never been able to get my IRB approved. For a very simple study and I don't understand. So I'm like, I'm just done. It's just a sign from above not to move forward.
One quick question.
Yes.
For this kind of student collaborative works, do we need to have IRB approval before you start working, or you can do afterwards also?
So it's going to depend on what you're doing. Right? So if you're using obviously secondary data, you don't have to. Depending upon what data you're collecting, there are some, I'm going to say, gray areas, right? Because you're in the classroom, you're over the students collecting some of their data. So for example, some journals, if you do commentary articles, they might not require that because there's no identifiable information. There are other projects, if you are collecting and doing anything survey that gets deployed, I'm always safe. I will always submit for an expedited review. So my general advice is, when in doubt, submit. Let them tell you don't need it.
Mary Lou wanted to say that she's so glad you're finding the IRB process relatively streamlined.
Good. See, and they did not pay me to say that. I promise you.
This is really great for so-called data people. Not everybody in this room knows.
Yeah.
The idea that you've got these like little nice, crunching data for you is great.
Well, this will be the first time, really, so I got a quantitative data. So again, I'm a qualitative researcher. Did I mention that? So I hate quantitative. I can do it. I just hate quantitative. And so this time, my students are going to be sifting through the data. And I will tell you, there are some, it's a lot of work. I had 2 students last semester. I want to pull my hair out. I don't do either. What's that? I don't do either. And so again, but now I found what works. I found the modeling that works. So I often try to, I don't want to say copycat, but mirror, right? Once you find something that works, because then you can kind of crunch it out because it's just in a cycle. And again, if anybody also has some ideas but are not sure, even though I might not be your discipline, I'm more than willing to brainstorm, right? What is some of the data that we have here, the ideas to bring it together? And that's where collaboration really comes in nicely.
Did you expand on your independent study to a different level of class?
Well, I mean, I picked my independent study students based on the same project that I give in my passions class. So I picked them from that. But eventually, 1 year, I'm going to be done with that particular project. You know, it's been a very long time. And so one of the things I am thinking about is, you know, what is next? And God, they don't read the way they used to. I really can't give them a peer-reviewed article and have them get it. It's really difficult. I mean, especially I'm first-year studies, so I tend to do freshmen. But I do the 3,000 level passions course, and teaching that allows me to read through the research and bring things up. You know, but in the end, it's, you know, we're single author. You know, I don't need a book for tenure, but I need it for my reputation in the field. And we don't, our tradition is not to collaborate.
And everybody's different. I mean, even for me, I have a certain amount. Like now, like people ask to collaborate, I'm like, sorry, I need a couple of first, you know, solo authors. So I'm backing up for a minute. So I like to have a balance as well. It's kind of catch-22. If it's all single author, you can't collaborate. If it's all second author, right, even though you can justify that, okay, why are you always second author? So, right, it is a balancing game and whatever it's, you know, recognized in your discipline. I would also say that, you know, that's one of the things that I'm challenged with, you know, when you say students don't read this, you know, the same or are able to produce some of those parts. Well, so I will tell you that going through the literature review parts with students is very difficult. If you were to see, there is absolutely more read and track changes on their papers. And most of the time, their first iteration they get from me, they're like, I can't do this. And my response is, you can do this if you want to. And every time you do a submission, that will get less and less. You know, because until I really know what their quality of writing and even their synthesis is, it's very hard for me. So again, I've had students where no matter how much I work with them, it was never ever going to even get close. But again, it was still a great experience for them. They still had I didn't let them stop. I just knew that it wasn't going to be able to go in that outlet. So the next piece, and you know, this is even similar to the others, right? So my visitor perception study that had a community engagement part, and I was able to get some of my qualitative research in there because then we did focus groups with city officials and community members, right? So I have that data set. So again, you know, that's one way. I also have taught a class, and this is a class that unfortunately has not really run in person since COVID, but I taught a farm to table class. You actually remember because I created a stink and I had PETA here at Stockton. Did you remember that? I do remember that. That was me. And with that, we did an open to the public symposium. So we brought community in, students did panels, they did a research symposium, they had to do research posters, and it all had an impact directly into the community. And from there, we did, you know, all of these different monthly educational workshops. So again, it was the way that we threw an event. It was in the community. They did the research symposium. So again, we got all of that to pull in. And the other piece is because so many of us are engaged and there's so many centers here at Stockton, there's a lot of very simple opportunities for us to collaborate and or get data sets to bring some of this together. Because typically, at least I find on the quantitative side, the most difficult part is the survey sample. And to get enough for it to, you know, to be publishable in a high quality journal. How many of you outside of publications have what, at least in the school of business, we have what they call outside or other activities. So we have to do things like symposiums and presentations and panels. Does anybody not have that?
You mean like requirements for within this, or we have to do things other than?
Yeah, we have to do 2 peer-reviewed publications every 5 years, plus 3 other activities that publications panels all peer-reviewed.
Okay, and that is whatever constitutes appropriate level for our discipline. Because best science and field science can do best science way faster than anything. How does it sound familiar?
Okay. And again, I mean,
Something.
and that's why, I mean, it has to be flexible to your discipline. So I'm definitely aware that some of it might not work. But again, for that community piece, if you're particularly someone that wants to get back to the community, so now most of the time, if I any classes, there's always some connection to something that we're going to do. Again, I'm also held to something called societal impact. So we're about to get very rigorous in how we measure that in this business. So not only do we have to do that, we have to prove that it has impact. And by impact, I don't mean citations or downloads. It has to have something that's tangible in the community, in the world. That's a new thing that we're doing in the school business. And this is one of the ways that we've gotten there a little bit. Does anybody do anything now that you can share with the group that takes some of your research engagement with the community and teaching that they want to share?
You do that, right? Don't you?
I do, but I don't publish it as a scholarship. This has always been a really interesting challenge for me, but maybe some people who do publish scholarship rather than creative work will give me ideas on how to do this. So very often I take a lot of creative writing pedagogy into the community to diverse populations, whether it's with older adults or after school programs, homeless shelters, treatment centers, etc. So I teach my undergrads how to teach community poetry, and the undergrads teach community poetry at these sites. And then each of these sites create work, and they often have I call it a culminating project, where they either have an open reading, or they do an anthology of their work there, or maybe they do at one time in a juvenile prison. Because you couldn't bring many things in, we bought tiles and we painted the poems on the tiles, and the poems stayed in the prison. So I don't publish any of that, but I take my scholarship, turn it into public creative writing, and then it normally ends there. It's hard for me to do the impact factors there. I feel like I need a research partner.
Well, just to throw an idea, I initially go to, wow, you do all these things, right? What a really cool research article would be on how does that contribute to one's sense of place and self-belonging. Right?
Is that a research article? I'm always like, is that research?
It is absolutely research. With a little bit of pre and post, whether they're interviews, survey, because you can absolutely measure that. And so, although it doesn't focus specifically on what might be behind or the theoretical on your discipline, it's about the impact in the broader sense.
Okay, well, apparently I have research project, but I have some research.
I'll send you 2 articles of connection to creative writing.
And then I'll be set.
So if any of you know poor Donna Albano, anytime we go on a car ride, we have research conversations. And by the time I get home, I've already sent her 15 articles on the topic. So, that's another piece that when we go into this is that it's a great thing to have an open conversation because there are ideas and disciplines. So for me,
they have to be hard, right?
very big on sense of place, sense of belonging, which would tie directly into things like that because that's community, it's culture, right? So you never know where there's a connection. I truly believe if you search hard enough, you will find a connection between my discipline and whatever you possess. It might be hard. You might have to really stretch it. But it can be done. Let's have her hand. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, my good girl. Hi, my baby. Hi, baby.
I can get here to see it on this.
Come on, girl. You're the pine cone, baby. Pine cone, baby.
Heard her name.
Alyssa, do you want to ask your question?
No, I was just going to say that I also have a research project through SCOSA.
Hold on. Let me just see if this is all the way up.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can hear you.
Okay, so I have a research grant through SCOSA, and it involves the community, specifically independent home dwellers, senior citizens, and so we're going into 3 different communities right now. And I have my community wellness class for physical therapy that they participate in, like the learning and the implementation of the sessions. We don't have them involved in the research because that wasn't what the program wanted to do, but through the grant, we do research on the seniors that are living independently in these 3 different communities. So it's been really neat to engage the students directly in that because they're getting real life experience with clients, community dwellers before they're out in the field working with patients. So it gives them hands-on
Wow.
experience.
So you just spurred another idea I have for Emory on hers, which is if you do it in multiple communities, you can kind of do like a content analysis and compare if you did the same lessons, was it the same or different how it manifested, and what does that have to do to tie into community or sense of place? So see that? You just stimulated another idea for her. Thanks.
Well done.
Is there anyone else on Zoom that has an idea that they want to share? Okay. Oh, please, Mary Lou.
Hi, everyone. Firstly, thank you so much for a really dynamic discussion on this topic. I think what you've done is really encapsulate the marrying of all the intersections of everything we do as professors. So thank you for really being super energetic and committed to this process and then delivering your perspective. I think one of the other additional features that I would like to add that has really worked well is thinking about from whence we came. Like, where are our collaborators across the state and across the United States, where our teams really exist from an interprofessional standpoint that we can engage. And I know that the momentum of my research is directly proportional to the teamwork at Rutgers with my HIV team, and at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and at Harvard Dana-Farber Cancer Center. They're teams that have been in place doing research with large NIH R01 grants, R21 grants, that really have taken deep footholding in being able to support each other. And certainly the work that some of the DPT students that have worked with me are in Atlantic City doing multicultural pilot data collection that then contributes to larger grant studies. So I want to never underestimate that the collaboration that you mentioned so beautifully this morning really does extend to other institutions where we really are working as great teams. And then it's the momentum, and it's supporting. I know at this juncture in my professional career, it's about helping junior faculty members and other faculty members really rise to the occasion. So I don't need to be the first author. They need to be the first author. So that's really what I really love endeavoring. So thank you so much. But I do want to point that out, that really getting your team, similar to what Alicia has been doing with her interprofessional team, and then not to mention, the opportunities at the state level to really reach out to communities. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou. Please.
This is all great. It's wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm going to push back again, though. The service you're talking about is community-based service, yes?
Yeah. I mean, we did a service impact study. We gave the community data, right?
Yep. Wonderful. What about service to the university?
It's also service to the university because in our mission statement, we are supposed to have a positive, impact on the growth and development and transformation of the city.
That's fine.
As an anchor institution.
Be
I can go back. You and I can go back and forth all day.
I know, go back and forth about this, but being in charge of the critical thinking, whatever we call it these days, associate head of critical thinking. My research, my service, and my teaching only overlap a tiny bit there. Obviously, my critical thinking teaching overlaps with it. But, I'm just trying to figure out if your model works for me.
Well, I would say that, one, I think that it's unique to each person and what their unique priorities are and what your discipline requires. And, for me, I've always said that my number one goal is that no matter what I do, I have to find a way to connect to community. That's my give back. Mm-hmm. It might not work for you, but I would say if you only do a little bit, I would say, well, why do you only do a little bit? And what are some creative ideas that you might be able to expand that to say, okay, let me dip my foot in a little deeper. Again, I'm not as familiar with your world and the creative writing pieces, unless you were to share some specific project examples and we could brainstorm about, okay, how does that go into the community? But I think about generally, like the challenges that we have from a literacy perspective, right, in the community. And, what are the things in the community that you might be able to do something that can have a small impact in all the cities in Atlantic City? So I'll give you an example. In our program, we had some of our students, now again, this wasn't necessarily a scholarship, but it could have been if we shifted a little differently, is our students wrote books based on grade levels as a fun give back to the community. We donated them to the schools in Atlantic City. So if there was something that there was some analysis or there was kind of, say, the Cliff Notes version, could that be packaged that there's some impact for someone that's, a different level than a college student? I don't know what that answer is, but I'm just trying to think of, I think there are opportunities for us to do it. It's just going to be how do we start to bend the common things that we've accepted and kind of push that out of the way for a little bit. Anybody else before we go on to my last strategy to keep us on time? Okay. So, and I think this goes to what Mary Lou, talked about when she had shared some, which is this idea of collaboration. And collaboration for me really falls into maintaining and blocking out time and strategically planning. And I've actually recently met with a couple of colleagues and we mapped out, like, here is what I do in semester 1, here's semester 2, here's semester 3, and then second project starts in semester 2 of this year. So I have an ongoing chart of everything that happens. But how many of you in here are procrastinators? Like, even if you did have a little time. So I'm either a super procrastinator or super in advance proactive. Like, there's no in between for me. So what that means is, even though I have blocked schedules for my collaborative meetings with my colleagues, I have 3 active research projects right now with colleagues from across universities, I probably won't do any of my work until the day before we have our meeting. That's me. Hopefully you're not like that and you have that time in between. But what I have found is that one of my biggest challenges, and this is even collaborating in the classroom with faculty at other universities, is that there truly isn't enough time in the day. So if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen and it never comes to fruition. So how many of you have had articles that they kind of just died? If you don't, then we all need to talk to you because I've had tons that have died. Tons. And because I'm not always the most organized, which is why I didn't put my laptop in here so you could see my desktop, some people just can't even find where they are. So again, I found that the weekly time blocks really work, particularly in different time zones. So I'm actually leaving as soon as my session is done to fly to Iceland. I'm a visiting scholar there. I have my students collaborate in Iceland with my students here. Right? So there's a time difference. So even though it's not in my schedule here for my Stockton students, they are required to attend at least 2 meetings of the semester. And there are 6. So you need to find a way to make 2 happen. And I know you're busy because so am I, and I can make all 6. So that's kind of how I position that. And then I know it sounds silly, but a calendar invite is not good enough. For me, it is what are the deliverables and the objectives? Because I don't know about you all, I love to collaborate, but there are also some people I will never collaborate with again. Does anybody also have that experience? I know we don't ever say that, but I want to be transparent with you all. There are people I will never work with again because we couldn't agree on the deliverables or there's writing style differences. So the more detailed you can be to hold yourself and your colleagues, I don't want to say accountable, it's not really the right word, but on track, I have found that it has really significantly helped us. And don't be afraid, for those that might have some of those perfectionist tendencies, so I am one of those, to also not pull something to go to a different outlet. So we recently wrote an article. I wanted to put it in a journal. My colleagues were like, we don't care about the letter. I go, I know, but I do. So can we try it? Got it in. It was a major revision. It was a lot of revision, but doable. So I'm like, let's do it. They're like, no. I go, no, let's do it. Yeah. So we turned around, we submitted to another journal, minor revision instead of major revision. It is published. It was the difference between probably what would have been 8 months to 3 months. So don't be afraid sometimes, whatever your own personal priorities are, right? Because for me, even though I want the A, it doesn't count any more than something else. So, and that's kind of a pride thing for me, but it's okay to let that happen sometimes. And sometimes we need to tell ourselves that it's okay, so I'm telling you, it's okay. As long as it's in your program standards and university standards and all that jazz. Because I don't want to misinform when y'all go up and you're like, but she said, you know what? Yes, whatever's in the standard, as long as that line, if you step down, it's totally work. So please protect me, the union. The last is, you know, again, this is just for those collaborative partnerships. As Mary Lou said, if you aren't sure, the way that I met a lot of the folks that I collaborate with, and it's across disciplines for me, is particularly through the associations that I belong to. That has been the most powerful for me. And it has also helped me to really leverage the intricacies and the synergies between disciplines. So I have published with folks in our sustainability programs across a variety of different universities, computer sciences. I have no idea about technology, just so y'all know. Outside of the basics, and I do love AI, but from a computer programming sense, I have no clue, and I have worked on research in that discipline. So very, very rewarding experiences. Don't be afraid to get involved in those professional associations or even talk to your colleagues. Who are you working with? Or what is it that you like? Because I don't know about you, I don't have to publish business and hospitality things, which by the way, hospitality is business. People get that confused too. Is a segment of business. I have published in areas, actually most of my work is on diversity and gender. So don't be afraid, even if it's maybe completely out of your discipline, I'm sure there's whatever your requirements are, but don't be afraid to step your foot and do something like, Emery, we should probably really talk about what you do. Because it could be from an entire, you know, even tourism, like heritage, cultural tourism perspective. So again, don't be afraid for those partnerships that you're like, that can't happen. It might be able to happen. So those are the things that I really want to do. And I guess as far as key takeaways, because I would like to just have open ideas and we can all discuss, or maybe some of you came here to look for a research partner, is that prioritize, but don't kill yourself. So that is why for me, every semester I start a new project. So they overlap. So this one, I'm starting a new project for Susan Davenport. I think she realizes it, but she's on the project with me. I don't know if she fully gets that yet. I mean, when I put you on the email, it kind of means like you're just in it, like you're done. Yeah. Right? So we have one, poor Don, I'll be in another room. We have one that we started last semester. So I just start next semester. I have one, oh God, Chad, you're on my list too. So again, I'm just taking people out.
How do I get on your calendar? Let's go.
I know, poor Chad's actually been like, when am I getting on your calendar? So again, what pace works for you? That might not work for you, that pace. Or maybe yours is really lengthy, right? Like maybe it is reading different manuscripts and having to synthesize them or read whatever it might be, or in sciences where it takes longer. Find the pace that works for you and your discipline. My original pace, I could not sustain. This pace is a little challenging when I also represent and have leadership roles in a variety of associations. So it's a little challenging. But again, do it for you, because then what I found as I started to do that prioritization, I actually enjoy it more versus I have to. I don't have that pressure that I have to. And, you know, all overall, right, for me, it has been self-care to have it all mapped out, to integrate it into the classroom, because I love teaching my students, but I actually love teaching the advanced courses. And the reason that is I love to push a student that doesn't see their potential, and they walk in my classroom, because I don't know if you ever read Rate My Professor, is like, she's the top one in the classroom. To see that they come in, that they don't think they can do it, and they walk out completely changed, that is what energizes me. So for me, it goes to that self-care by bringing all the things that I love together, but at the same time, seeing that student completely do what they never thought they could do. So those are some of the things I wanted to share with you. For those of you that might have things that intersect in my world, and I will put it in this folder that I have a 15-week research outline that I use in my classes with my students. I then will share with you, it's a collaborative document, everything is cited in it, so where I pulled it from, of how to teach students how to write industry commentary articles and discipline commentary articles, and it goes everything from whether you require an abstract or a synopsis, how to do an abbreviated literature literature review, how to do all the sections. I have it all done. I use it in my classes. I'm willing to share that with all of you. As part of that. And then in my world, we have undergraduate research events coming up. And actually in September, they're bringing 3 top researchers in my world to share how you write research for students. So I'll share that with you. I'll give you my code so it would be free for you to share with your students, to give you a perspective from faculty that publish with students all the time. Yes, the topic might be different, but the mechanics is. So I will share all of that for you. So can we just leave this now as open discussion and everybody maybe share ideas that came from this or what you're thinking about doing or you want ideas? And I'll put on everybody here so we can see everyone in case our Zoom folks have anything to share.
Mary, do you want to share that straight out here too?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to share another connection. I went state and national, other universities in collaborations, but I would also like to say a couple of SFT meetings ago, Tara Kroll and I presented on Fulbright Scholar. And actually out of that workshop, we had several people that actually applied and got a Fulbright Scholar, which allows you to be 6 weeks internationally. I'm hoping that you're visiting scholars through that, Nicole.
Well, so actually, that is one of the things. So I have 2 things on my list for this semester. One is to officially apply for a Fulbright. So my arrangement's a little different as a visiting scholar, and then to bring in a grant because we typically don't do that in our program. So those now I start to get the eyes, right? So sometimes, right, we have to watch those ambitious people, but I would love any insight, and I will definitely look if you do another workshop. So that is on my to-do checklist of what I like to do.
Recorded their presentation on the SFT YouTube page.
Oh, then I'll have to look.
So you can watch it. You know, when you send me those articles, I'll send you the link.
You got it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm happy to even share the whole application. It's pretty simple. You have an area of expertise. And then when you get the scholar appointment, you then match with a university across the globe. And it's really exciting. And the folks in South Africa that I've worked with, I've continued to go back 6 times. So it's that kind of collaboration that, again, runs deep when you really enjoy in that collaboration and a deep dive into collaborative research. So thank you. And I see that you are actually leaving for Iceland now.
I am. So this will be my 5th trip visiting. So yes, I leave and I get there at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning their time. And then by the noon, I will be teaching. And
wow.
Yes, I can keep my energy without sleep, just so y'all know. And yes, no, I don't drink coffee or energy drinks.
You don't eat.
No, I don't.
Don't give her any people. Don't.
No.
Thank you for your energy and have safe travels. And good.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they want to share? Any ideas?
Brings to mind with me, I've been adjunct for many, many years here and elsewhere, and this is, I have to say, is stressing me. I don't know how, one thing we really have to make sure we try to do is reserve full-time tenured track lines. I don't know what's going on here, but at most universities and colleges, that's, it's dwindling. People retire, they're not replacing them with full-time lines, and then how do you juggle all of this? And family commitments, when you're adjuncting in, potentially 5 different schools just to try and pay bills.
I can completely acknowledge that. So I actually came to Stockton as a 13-day while working full-time. And I can tell you from that experience, and this might not be the same for you, but what I found with some of our NCTPs that we have hired in our adjuncts is that they all have desire to be full-time faculty. However, and this might not be in everybody's school, I also think that we don't set them up for success because we say only teaching and service and research. So if you're someone that doesn't do research, but guess what? When you get to the table, the hiring table, you have no publications, you're not getting hired. So I think, one of the things I have really done is I have taken on, at least in our school of business, many of the NCTPs I'm doing research with. And they hate me for it and say, no, you at least need to have one. You have nothing. When that spot opens, and I do believe that there is going to be a stronger emphasis on the appropriate balance, but I do believe there will be faculty lines that will open as needed. in the future. And we have to prepare these folks to be able to successfully take that on and not panic. Because if we don't even get them to the interview table, and I was one of them, when I came here, I had no publications. My dean at this time, who's no longer here, told me two things. One, I don't like you. I go, well, I actually don't like you either. And the second one was, you have no publications, I will never hire you. Now, mind you, I'm in a 13-year-old. And I said, okay, tell me what your bar is that you don't think I can publish. So I'm also going to address another way elephant in the room, is that there's a negative, so one, I'm not a career academic, so I had no idea the difference between a PhD and an EDD, and there's a deep DBA. I had no idea. No clue. Now I do. I have an EDD. My dean says, you have an EDD, you can't do research. I go, I can do research. I said, and I'm a practitioner, because what you do only works in a vacuum. We were pretty candid with each other. I was in an executive leadership role in corporate for a very large company for over a decade. And so I said, what is your bar? She said, I bet you can't do 2 publications by the end of the semester. I did 4. So again, sometimes, right, there are all these barriers that we have around us, and we have the drive and some of the right network, because some of it, how many of you have ever submitted to a journal and they ask you to select your reviewers? I hate that too. You want to know what? It's your network. So you have to network people, because people know your writing. They know your discipline and your expertise. And that is why you have to bridge that network. When I first started, I pulled an excerpt from my dissertation, which is on entrepreneur architecture and higher ed. It sounds really good, right? That's why I knew it would get published, because no one knows what that means. And it can't get rejected. I went to one of my colleagues who was highly regarded. Told me the journal, told me the reviewers, it was accepted in a week. So again, sometimes it's a point of access and entry, and that is why it's important that anyone that's an adjunct, anyone that's an NCP, if they have the desire, other faculty that are willing have to mentor and get these people to start building their portfolios, so when the opportunity comes, you're not panicking, and you get to the interview.
And I want to add that FON is for adjuncts, FON is for staff. The only thing FON is not for is administration. Because we have to be honest in terms with each other. But what not everybody knows that. If you're an adjunct, it's a lot of fun.
Any other? Oh, Mary Lou, hold on. If you can unmute, or I can unmute you.
Just was saying hi to everybody in the room since you just turned the camera.
Yeah, here, well, here's a camera view of everyone.
Hi, everybody. I wish I could be there. Good to see you all. Alicia and I are sitting here looking out, and, we're happy to help in any way. And we love your enthusiasm. This is you are a breath of fresh air, Noel. Oh my God.
Thank you.
It's incredible.
I'm available for hire.
First of all, thank you. I knew I was selecting the right room in terms of, sending a presentation. For those who don't know, I'm a staff member in the CED office, and I'm currently conducting a program here, organizational leadership. So I aspire to eventually possibly be faculty member someplace. This is very, very timely, as I just shared with Chad and Noel that I just completed my rough draft of my literature review. So all this research and how it's collaborative and how you can utilize it in the classroom, all very timely. So thank you. I said I would say thank you. And also I wanted to share one of the things that I do. I teach writing for the media in the Common Studies program, and I didn't realize it until you spoke today. I created a sheet, almost like as an icebreaker concept. And I have the students write down what their expectations are before I share the syllabus. So they don't know. I say, what are your expectations of the course? What do you hope to learn or get out of this? What do you dread or you're not looking forward to? And then I collect it at the end of the class. So they don't know, it just gives me perspective. But then at the end of the semester, I return those papers to them. And then we discuss it. So then, as I'm realizing, that's really like a pre and post survey.
It is. I have so many ideas for you right now. I even have a journal for you.
So they're like, Mrs. Peterson, like, what? I remember I wrote this. So some of their fears, we then assess, they conquered those, and that they
they created an advertisement, or they did an interview and wrote a story, an article about it. So in a sense, I'm like, that is just another me thinking outside the box, creative way. I'm not a numbers.
It's a case study right there.
Okay.
Right? Small sample case study could be qualitative if you talk about it and you have them write it. You can still do a quantitative analysis on that, and you can talk about student transformation in this class. Find a journal that's relative to that discipline. There's in every discipline, I have found. Because my sisters are actually all in the sciences. They actually went to Stockton. They usually have teaching and learning sections in journals. So you can talk about your pedagogy.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I would say too, that if you're unsure, if you want to get your foot wet, start in a pedagogy, journal. Read them. Anyone, if I give you a recommendation, I don't know if anybody has done it here at Stockton, the doctoral program, but if you truly want to go to faculty, you might want to consider a manuscript version of a dissertation instead of the standard one, because then when you go out, you're going to have 2 to 3 manuscripts prepared for publication versus trying to figure out how you can break that apart. Now, I've shared that sometimes with them, and they kind of look at me, but again, if you know you want to be a faculty member, unless it's a timeline difference. I was originally doing a manuscript version. I wanted to finish. I had a month before I was going to have to relocate. And I told my advisor, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do standard because I can push it out and it's done. I will worry about the manuscripts later. But if you're in it and you're committed and you can do it now and shift a little bit, I absolutely recommend it. I saw some head shaking. Do you all agree with me on that?
I did that too. You basically write 3 or 4, however many papers.
Yep.
And I actually had one of them published before I got my degree. And the other 3, they were just there. They were actually in the pipeline. And then all you have to write is an introduction and an introductory paragraph or chapter and a concluding chapter. Yeah. That's how it was done in Edel in my field. It would be the whole process waiting.
Yeah. So yeah, just an idea to throw out at you. And even at that, if you submit a segment of it, right, because you have to watch self-plagiarism, it's really big right now with the checkers, just so everybody knows. If you submit to a conference a piece of it, right, a lot of conferences now give priority reviews to their journals. And many of these conferences that are high ranked have high-ranking journals that are accepted across the university because, they're on Australian Dean's list or listed in Cabell's. And then you have that early priority to publish a small segment of that. And, again, this is where you have to find out the program, the school that you're targeting. Like in ours, even in proceedings, there's a requirement. So a lot of times proceedings can be an abstract, like we don't count that it has to be 2 pages. It has to have a literature review section, a discussion section, and the results for us to count as a proceeding school of business. So the more digging you can now do to understand those requirements, then you can start lining it up. Anyone else? Anybody want to start a new research project? We have 1 minute. Anybody need a research partner? She's really good, though. Right here.
I'm willing to discuss possible collaborations with things pertaining to postal change, social processes.
I have an amazing colleague, if you are interested in connecting to. She is doing a research study. She just got sabbatical. She's going to California and she's studying the waves because her daughter is a surfer and talking about the beaches and sustainability. I just think it might be a really cool partnership.
I'm also wondering if you're interested in participating in Coast Day this year.
I'm always willing to, get my feet wet.
I'll send you another.
I mean,
Hospitality in the beach.
Oh yeah,
it is a beach. We're in the I love the beach.
About all things coastal.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I'm always looking for things. I don't know about any of you. My last point I'll leave you with. I'm a swirler. Do you all know what that means?
Nuts in your mouth?
No, it is more I'm very easily distracted, right? So there used to be a commercial and it's like, oh, there's a squirrel and you keep turning your head. So for me, if you look at my publication record, you can tell when I shifted direction because I got bored. They all connect still, but I have a segment and it's like, what can I move on to next? Because I get bored with it. So I'm always looking for new ideas. So keep it young, keep it fresh. Thank you for all joining me. I look forward to seeing you all at the Fall Faculty Conference. Emery and team, thank you for bringing this and inviting me. And good luck with your research.